All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we look at last night's slate, had some members have some awesome wins. And then we'll look at today's slate, talk about guys we want to go over on, under on, etc. And then, of course, during the pre-lock show, which is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern today for VIP members only, we'll have the pre-lock show where we'll talk through using the domination station, what we're doing, and actually executing on the strategy of this show. And then of course B-Dubs Brandon will be there for that. He isn't able to make this one, so no worries. Let's look at last night. I'll be honest, I made a super silly rookie mistake, so my lines weren't that great. I forgot to upload them. Embarrassing. Happens sometimes though. But I did still have some live lines for the second half of games. I just missed the early slate, which when you look at the winning lineups yesterday, you had to have exposure to some of those early games. So first, shout out to Big Red. Awesome 35K takedown, second place in the 100K tournament. Big Red is a DFS Army member. Love to see the success he had. We'll look at his lineup. And then right next to him, we have the $100,000 winning lineup, which had a lot of guys we were on. Not too many surprises here. We'll look at Big Red's line first. Lowry was a core play. Donovan Mitchell, if you watched the pre-lock show yesterday, B-Dubs had him as a leverage play, someone that he was well over the field on, so that panned out well. Also, if you watched the pre-lock show, Brandon liked Klay Thompson a lot as well yesterday, and so we were over on him. Kevin Love was showing up a lot for us naturally in the domination station, so that wasn't much of a surprise. Mitchell Robinson was a core/leverage play for me yesterday. Once again, bigs against Charlotte, guys. We say it all the time. It doesn't matter who you are. We're just going to play you because 9 times out of 10, they end up in the nuts lineup. Dennis Schroeder, he was the super sneaky guy that no one else had yesterday that you needed to that you didn't have to win 100K, but gave you a huge boost if you had him. Once again, I sound like a broken record. B-Dubs, Brandon on the pre-lock show, was also on Dennis Schroeder yesterday, so that went well. Evan Mobley, again, we knew to target Cleveland. I wish I was heavier on them. They made a lot of sense yesterday. And then Rudy Gobert was someone that I forced exposure to yesterday on the pre-lock show as well. So there wasn't anyone that we were just missing here, y'all. This is really, really good. So congrats to you, Big Red, Cliff in the Discord. The 100K winning lineup also had a lot of guys we were on. Kyle Lowry, core play. Josh Richardson, you got a lot up in the domination station. Hamey was a core play for me yesterday, so that wasn't much of a surprise. Julius Randle, we forced men's on yesterday. I counted Julius Randle as a big against the Hornets, so that wasn't really a surprise for me. Al Horford, once again, I didn't have a ton of him. He did crush last night, though, so good to those who did that. Spencer Dinwiddie was one of those guys that Brandon mentioned yesterday as well. I definitely do wish I had more exposure to Dinwiddie, and we talked about Mobley and Mitchell already. So, yeah, good night last night across the board. Definitely wish I had Les Edwards. That was probably a really bad, just one of the plays that didn't pan out for me as much, and there was someone else, too, that I'm blanking on, but it happens. Decent slate in general, and love seeing DFS Army members crush themselves, because that's always a lot of fun. Thomas Dye, I hope you're doing well. Good to see you, man. Michael Ortiz, good morning to you. Streets BT, am I done with tournament tactics? Yeah, basically. I love the NFL. It's a sport I've had a lot of success with, but NBA is my priority. It's the one I've had multiple 100K takedowns with. So I focus on NBA content once the NBA season starts. So unfortunately, it's hard to do both and still make the Friday show. And it's at the same time when I do my pre-lock show. So I love it. Love those guys, but can't make everything happen, unfortunately. So let's just look at these games. So I think it's a pretty interesting slate. Again, we saw the trend just looking at yesterday's games. You see it again today. We like to pick on the Wizards. They're in high total games all the time. That makes the Magic viable for the first time in a while. Also, we have the Clippers and Kings and Sixers Pelicans game also standing out as relatively high total games. Though these are the 3 games I like to prioritize, I do like some pieces from this Lakers Pistons game, Suns Raptors game as well. Just because of what's happening with the Grizzlies, you're going to get a lot of them in your lineups. And then when it comes to Utah, Rockets, Nuggets, we're going to have to wait for some news to really make these teams look a bit more interesting. But I think there still are a few plays here and there. So, like I said, interesting slate. Streets. You just gotta know where we need the most help at DFS Army, and we have a lot of really good coaches on the NFL side of things, whereas we're a little bit smaller on the NBA side of things. So, always happy to help out where I can. But back to these games, we have the Wizards against the Magic. For the Wizards side of things, they're pretty healthy, and this entire team is healthy. Jordan Poole is priced up, so we don't have to worry about playing him as much as we have over the last few slates. Avdia is obviously someone who's shown his ceiling a decent amount this season as well. Kuzma at 8,600 is probably the most viable guy for me. Again, this game does have the highest total on the slate, and so especially if Kuzma's ownership stays pretty low, around 3 to 5%, I'll probably at least be around field weight on him, just because this is the highest total game on the slate. I don't love the matchup against the Magic, but if he's going to be 3% owned, I'm willing to match and or go over the field on him here, just out of principle. But of course, if he ends up getting a little bit chalkier, I'm totally fine fading him. Daniel Gafford has been in decent form lately. He's only 5,800. I think he's someone who we can pick on the Magic here while Wendell Carter Jr. is still out. They're not a bad defense by any means, but softer than they typically are, and he's only 5% owned. I don't know if Gafford's going to be a leverage play. I don't like the spot quite that much, but hopefully by putting a like on him, he'll show up enough in the domination station for me. If not, we might have to force some exposure to him on the pre-lock show. The Magic, we're seeing ownership on these guys, and you see it across the board. All of their starters are 15% owned or higher, and it makes sense. It's like I said, we like to pick on the Wizards, and these guys are all in fantastic matchups. The one guy I am willing to prioritize tonight is Paolo Banchero. He's the guy for this team. Only 8,200, not super expensive. The ownership's a little scary at 17%, but I'm willing to go up to 40, 50% if need be. I really like this spot for Paolo. Franz is fine. Suggs is fine. Gogo, they're all fine. Again, I like them because they're in the highest total game on the slate and soft matchup, but I don't feel strongly enough to prioritize any of them. Cole Anthony at 6,700, coming off a fantastic game last time out. He stands out a good bit. Again, we're desperate for value, so paying 6,700 for a guy like Cole Anthony who has upside makes sense on a slate like this. He's someone that I'd be willing to deprioritize and have in less of my lineups if we get better value. So we'll see. Zolo, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. We're going to play a lot of the Magic tonight, and I'm not going to go out of my way to avoid it because it's the highest total on the game slate. Last time I have to say that, I hope. Next up, we have the Lakers against the Pistons. If you pay attention to the injury news, which you should for NBA, the Lakers, these guys are always questionable. LeBron James is questionable. Anthony Davis is probable. I'm assuming everyone's going to play here, so I'm not overly concerned about any of that. The matchup against the Pistons is fine. It's not something that I try to avoid typically one way or the other. They do give up a decent amount of points in the paint, so I am, once again, more than willing to play Anthony Davis here. He will, once again, be a leverage play for me on this slate. That's just something I can guarantee. It's like a broken record at this point, but it is what it is. I'll have at least 10%, would be willing to go a little bit closer to 20% on AD tonight. Outside of that, I don't love any of these pieces. It does look like guys like Reeves and Reddish are getting ownership. I'm fine with them. Not guys I'm going to try to force in or try to make happen, to be honest. They just don't stand out for me too much based on their price tag. Zolo said, how do you feel about Cam Reddish coming back into the starting lineup? I mean, it's definitely plus. It's a plus thing for him. Being 4,700, being a starter, should see around 28 to 30 minutes. I think it's fine for him. It's a decent spot, and that's why he's seeing ownership around 14%. I'm fine with him showing up in my lines tonight. I'm not going to X him out or anything, but he's not someone who's going to be a core play or someone that I feel strongly about. He's just in the mix. Pistons side of the ball. We have them going up against the Lakers. Bogdanovich is out. All that matters a little bit, but really no one is standing out for me too much here. I think you can definitely make a case to play Cade Cunningham. I think he's probably my favorite play, which is why I have a like on him already. Ideally, I'll be around field weight. I am going to 150 max tonight, so I plan on having at least 3 to 5% Cade Cunningham just to kind of keep him in the mix, but don't love these other spots. We do know we can play bigs against the Lakers, so Duren makes a ton of sense here. Andy's only 6,900, playing pretty solid minutes here lately, so he's viable, but I feel like I still don't love it as much as his ownership is. Again, I'll probably be around field weight just to keep the principle of playing bigs against the Lakers intact and being consistent with that, but it's one of those spots I want to look a little bit closer at just because there's a lot of solid bigs on this slate. Thompson's not on my radar. Jaden Ivey, 5,700, looking super chalky. Let's look at this. Jaden Ivey. I know he's had some strong games, but that ownership, 25%, seems a little hefty. Unless we really are just that desperate for value. Yeah, he's been in decent form. 2 games over 35 back-to-back. 2 games playing 32 minutes, which is solid. Yeah, I understand the case to be made for him. But again, just another guy I'm not looking to prioritize. If I'm prioritizing anyone, it's Cade Cunningham from this game. And I prioritize guys from the first game, the Wizards and Magic, over the Lakers here or the Pistons. But like I said, the only guys I'm forcing exposure to for sure is Anthony Davis from that game. Next up, we have the Suns against the Raptors. Yeah, definitely athletic guards have been doing well against the Lakers as of late. Part of why I have some interest in Cade Cunningham, but we'll have to see. How do we feel about Ivy? Some model likes him. Let's see here. Pull up the sim. We'll look at Jaden Ivey. I guess I can show the sim. I usually like to save it for VIP members, but it's early enough. Some things will change. I'm not dramatically... I don't feel like we're giving away too much here. Yeah, Ivy does stand out a good bit on the sim. We look at the 8X column over here. It does like guys like Gafford and Poeltl a little bit more, but different positions. But still, I like to compare to other guys in the price range. Likes Dylan Brooks similarly. 1.6 is good for sure. Mo's good call out. But 1.6 at that price tag isn't substantial enough where I feel like, oh, I have to have Ivy tonight. It just speaks to the upside he has, and he's been pretty consistent with it. So he's viable. And so it doesn't really change how I feel about him. He's still in the mix for me. I would be comfortable having some exposure, but not a guy I'm going to prioritize. If we were looking at that column and I saw a 4.5% or a 6% number in that column, that's when I start to increase my likelihood of forcing exposure to guys like that. But hopefully that makes sense. Next up, we have the Suns against the Raptors. The Suns, these guys are always questionable, it feels like. Beal's been out all season. The important news here is KD. Kevin Durant is listed as questionable. That is huge for this team. We saw last time out when Durant wasn't playing, Devin Booker had an extremely great game. 33% usage rate, 28 points, 11 assists. He was involved in all aspects of the game. He's now 10,300 because of that. If KD plays, I'm not playing Devin Booker. If KD's out, I'm playing Devin Booker, and I'll be at least around field weight to whatever he is, and I would be comfortable going pass and over the field too. But I want to make sure I'm at least around field weight. Nurkic. Oh, and then Eric Gordon also sees a nice boost from usage rate standpoint if KD is out as well, so I would have some more exposure to him. And I'll be a little bit more comfortable with guys like Josh Okogie as well. But again, if KD plays, I'm not playing any of them. Grayson Allen is also listed as questionable. Him being out does secure some of the aspects for some of the other peripheral players on this team, but no one's really standing out for me now. That's just something we'll have to pay more attention to once we get the news. Mo, you are not wrong. I am not loving the chalk today. We'll see on the pre-lock show how weird we actually get, though. I do feel like this could be a slate where this could be anti-chalk day, which isn't something I like to do a lot, but it's feeling that way a little bit. We'll see on the pre-lock show. Also, maybe Brandon will talk some sense into me, and I'm getting crazy, or I'm going crazy. Mo, I appreciate you. Yeah, there are quite a few people in here right now. If you all could like, subscribe, we're almost at 20,000 subscribers, so I can't believe we've grown that much over the last few years, so love to see it. Cliff, for those of you that don't know, he's the one who took down the contest last night. 35K win, awesome. Got in a little late, but listened to the beginning of the show really quick. Thanks for the shout out. I try to listen to the podcast every day, and it's been helpful, so thanks a lot. Awesome. That's great, man. I didn't even know you tuned in. But no, I'm glad we're able to help where we can, you know. Love seeing members and other people do well, because that's how I started off, as a member who was able to have a few takedowns. So 35K is an awesome way to bring in or to end the year. Mo, appreciate you always, man. Kanger said Phoenix plays early so chalk can change. Agreed. These early games with some of the news, we should get that news early, and so the chalk will probably change dramatically by the time we get to lock. So I don't love it now, looking towards maybe fading some of the chalk, but by the time we get to lock, I could be very much so on board with whatever changes happen with the news, and hoping for that, honestly. On the other side of this game, we have the Raptors, still a decent total at 226, close spread. So this is still a game I like. It's not surprising at this point. I typically like these Raptors. The sim models, typically pretty excited about them as well, pretty much on every slate. But because the spread is as close as it is, I still like this spot, even though the matchup is not fantastic against the Suns these days. But Siakam's 8,400. Supposed to be low owned, willing to be around 10% and have him as a leverage play tonight. Jakob Poeltl is only 6K, playing decent minutes. Again, Jakob Poeltl, he can be a little volatile at times, but that ceiling is definitely there for him in pretty much any matchup. So I still like the spot for Jakob Poeltl. Scotty Barnes has been solid all season. He's fine, but I'm really only prioritizing Siakam and Jakob Poeltl here. Schroeder had a night last night. I'm not trying to chase that. His ownership at 6,400 is a little wild to me at 12%. Maybe B-dubs might see something I might be missing here, but for now, I'm not into that play. OGs feel similarly for him, the same way I do about Schroeder. But like I said, I'm really only forcing in Jakob Poeltl and Siakam here. All right. We have the Jazz against the Memphis Grizzlies. The Jazz have been annoying as hell this season. I'm not going to lie. I feel like Markkanen, he's not traveling with the team, so he's not going to play tonight. At least we know that. Jordan Clarkson is questionable. Kelly O is questionable. We've seen when Jordan Clarkson's not playing how involved Keontae George has been from a usage standpoint. So he's someone that I am willing to prioritize now, only if Jordan Clarkson ends up being ruled out. John Collins would also see a nice boost in that situation as well. So for me right now, these guys aren't standing out. But if Jordan Clarkson's out, I'm more interested in guys like George, maybe even Sexton would become a bit more viable for me. The price tag on Sexton is still kind of outrageous, so probably a bit of a stretch, but I'll look a little bit closer at it. And then with Markkanen already being out, if Kelly O is ruled out, my interest in guys like John Collins and Walker Kessler goes up a bit as well. So for now, don't love it, but I'm okay with it if Jordan Clarkson and Kelly O get out. Zillow, I am not interested in THT right now, but similarly to how I feel about George, THT sees a nice boost from a usage standpoint, and his minutes are a bit more consistent when Clarkson sits as well. But as of right now, I don't love his price tag of 5,500. That's a little hard for me to swallow. The Grizzlies. This is the super chalk of the slate. I feel like everyone and their mom is playing these guys right now. John Morant is out. Luke Kennard is out. Marcus Smart is out. Brandon Clark is out. Xavier Tillman is out. They're missing a lot of guys. And that's why you're seeing the kind of ownership you're seeing on guys like Jaren Jackson and Bane and Aldama and Biyombo today. I am fine playing Biyombo because I like his price tag at 5,200. That's a bit more doable for me. I get a bit more nervous as we start trending up the price tags. Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. have just not been fantastic this season. The Jazz have been pretty weak from a front court defensive standpoint as of late. So the matchup for Jaren Jackson Jr. is softer than it appears, but you shouldn't feel great about this chalk just because they haven't been in the best of form. But this is still a close spread of 4 points, pretty soft matchup against the Jazz, and so it's not bad chalk. It's not bad. It's just I think we can find ways to get different. As of right now, I'm fine being around field weight on Bane, Jaren Jackson, and Aldama, but I'm not trying to exceed or go over their projected ownership at this point. This is where I'm going to spend most of my energy today, trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do here and if I have good pivots off of them. But yeah, so we'll have more clarity for the pre-lock show. Right now, I'm leaning towards fading this spot, but I could be talked out of it. And my main reasons for fading, like I said, total relatively low, spread is close. That's what keeps me interested. But the form just has not been there for a lot of these guys outside of Aldama. All right, Sixers against the Pelicans. Sixers are pretty healthy right now. So there's that. I feel like there's only 3 guys you should really be looking at here, and it's pretty hard to afford 2 of them with the value we have currently on this slate. One being Joel Embiid, always playable, matchup proof. Tyrese Maxey at 9,200. We saw the kind of upside he had last time out. Still a lot of good upside here, but hard to prioritize on this slate. And then Tobias Harris, 6,700. His price tag is what keeps him viable, at least for me. So Harris is interesting at 6,700. He's the guy that I plan on having exposure to today. Maxey, he has my interest, but the price tag, I'm going to have to see how lines look having him in there, just because I think he might be a little hard to fit in with some of the other guys I like a lot on this slate. Pelicans are pretty dead to me at this point. CJ McCollum said on his show that he will be playing tonight. If he plays, that's a big hit to Zion and Ingram's usage rates. It's sad because I feel like they just started getting back into form and just starting to look a little good again. But it is what it is. I'm happy that CJ's healthy and able to play, so that's a good thing for him. But for DFS purposes, it really makes me a lot less interested in all of these guys. The spread is surprisingly close, though, which increases my interest in a low-owned Joel Embiid at 4.13 ownership. Again, we'll have to play around and see like how easy it is to actually make lines, but they're interesting. Another chalky team, and it's a trend that we're seeing a lot. The 2 lowest total games, this Jazz-Memphis game, this Rockets-Nuggets game, we're seeing a lot of ownership on them, which just feels weird. I get the Grizzlies because they're missing so many guys, and I guess Utah because of a softer matchup against the Grizzlies. I don't really understand why the Rockets are seeing so much ownership. They're not extremely cheap, and the matchup against the Nuggets is softer as of late, but still not one that you should love targeting. So I think Fred VanVleet is interesting. I'd be more interested in him if he was lower owned. Şengün, again, 8,500, good price tag for the upside he brings, but I'm not a big fan of playing bigs against Jokic, which Jokic is questionable today. So we do have to keep a close eye out for if Jokic is going to actually play or not. If Jokic doesn't play and he ends up being ruled out, I'm interested in playing a guy like, we did the same thing with Zubac when Jokic was out. We played Zubac. Zubac went off because it was a softer matchup without Jokic. I do the exact same thing with Şengün here. Right now, I'm on the fade train. Not completely, but I'm just not as interested in Şengün going up against Jokic. So I'm more so leaning towards fading him than playing him. You're not wrong, Zolo, and I would be totally on board playing him if he wasn't 21% owned or projected to be that. So if that changes, I'm open to fading it. Again, you don't have to by any means, but I'm just leaning towards fading him at this point if the Joker plays. Dixon said, chat, the hallway monitor is here. Hit that like. Appreciate you, Dixon. I hope you're doing well. I cannot talk today. One of those things. But yeah, they're coming off a back-to-back. Honestly, most of the teams playing today are coming off a back-to-back, or they're on the front end of a back-to-back. So kind of hard to avoid the back-to-backs today. But yeah, Fred VanVleet is really the only guy I am excited to play from the Rockets, but I'm leaning towards fading them overall. Jalen Green being lower owned, 10% is fine. Dylan Brooks, no. Terry Eason is fine at 4,400, his price tag. Just because we're lacking value, it's okay if he's in the mix, but the lack of minutes he's been playing is concerning. Don't worry, most of my plays are coming from the last game. If you're wondering who I actually do like. I like Jokic if he plays. Totally fine. Probably one of the biggest concerns for me is just that everyone's questionable for the Nuggets right now. So we have a lot of question marks. We have Jokic listed as questionable. Jamal Murray is listed as questionable, might return this game. That makes me a little bit less interested in Jokic. And the thought process behind that is that when Murray has been off the court, Jokic has had a 35.3% usage rate. Insane number, by the way. And then when Murray plays, he has a 30.4% usage rate. So slightly less involved, still extremely high and very good, but a little bit harder for him to pay off that $12,800 price tag. So I'm paying attention to these questionable tags. I like Jokic. I like him more if Murray sits. If Murray plays, I'm less interested in Jokic, but still fine having a little bit of exposure to him. Jamal Murray, questionable if he sits. I'm also more interested in MPJ and Aaron Gordon. If Aaron Gordon sits, I'm willing to go right back to Michael Porter Jr. here, assuming no one will play him because he burned all of us on Monday. And then Reggie Jackson, of course, is viable if 2 out of the 3 end up being out. Let's see. KCP would be viable if 2 out of the 3, or if all 3 end up being out. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Jokic. I'm not playing him if just 1 or 2 are out. And then, oddly enough, I'll be fine going back to DeAndre Jordan if Jokic ended up being out too. So, could be a wild slate if the Nuggets decide to get weird, but I think I would prefer for them just to play and we don't have to worry about all the different scenarios. But that is where we have the most of an edge, is pivoting to the right guys. Let's see. Dixon said, Josiah, in your opinion, was Fox shaving points last night? Have you seen clear cases of this year? I mean, honestly, I don't know is the honest answer, and I haven't seen extremely clear cases of it, but it's something to keep an eye out on for sure. But it's not going to change the way I do anything right now. All right, next up we have the Clippers against the Kings. Again, this game is looks like totals have changed a little bit during the show, maybe. Maybe I'm just going crazy. But this is the second highest total game on the slate. We have the Clippers against the Kings. For the Clippers, pretty much healthy. Plumlee's out. Boston Jr.'s out. None of that really matters. I am willing to go right back here and play Paul George, Kawhi, James Harden at relatively low ownership. It's kind of shocking to me. They're not really any more expensive than they've been the last few games. And again, this is the second highest total game on the slate with the closest spread. I don't know what's happening here, and honestly, I don't really care. All I know is I'm playing Paul George. I'll be over the field on him. Kawhi Leonard is seeing some ownership at 15%. That makes sense. He did have a good game last time out. He is going to be a I'll be at least around field weight on Kawhi. I would be happy to be over the field on him. And then James Harden, similar story to Paul George, possibly a leverage play for me on this slate, but I think I'll probably just lean more so towards PG as the leverage play and just make sure I'm at least around field weight on James Harden, if not a little higher. Other guys, Russell Westbrook, not extremely excited by him. Zubac, I'm willing to go back to, but again, I really only played him last time around because of the soft matchup. Don't love this spot for him as much this time around, but if he shows up into some of my lines, that's fine. Norman Powell. Yeah, I don't think I'm doing that. Terrence Mann. I know Powell is B-Dubs' guy, but yeah, not the biggest fan most of the time. Terrence Mann, 4,500, 10% ownership. I'm honestly fine with Powell and Mann. I would be comfortable being anywhere from like 2 to 15% on both of them. I would like to have exposure here just because, again, second highest total on the slate, but not guys I'm trying to force in too much of. But yeah, I like the Clippers tonight. One of my favorite teams to play. The Kings I also like, but to a lesser extent. As of right now, is Keegan Murray still TBD? Yeah, he's still TBD. I'm a bit more interested in some of the peripheral players if Keegan Murray ends up getting ruled out officially. Guys like Herter, Monk would be a bit more viable for me. Not really trying to take weird shots on Barnes or Mitchell. Maybe a little bit of Lyles, but again, I'm not as interested in these guys if Keegan Murray plays. But the one guy I am going to make sure I have exposure to tonight is Sabonis. I would like to be at least around 5 to 10% on him. And then Fox, I keep going back and forth on, but I'll more than likely be over the field on him too. Just because, again, second highest total game on the slate. These other games are interesting just because of some of the news surrounding it. But I really do want to continue to prioritize the Wizards, the Magic, the Clippers, the Kings, and then take pieces from Sixers, Pelicans, Lakers, Pistons. And then these other games should be lineup fillers, not guys I'm prioritizing. But we'll see. It's already looking weird, but hopefully we get some news that makes things a little bit easier. Yeah, agreed. CJ coming back is going to make things weird for the Pelicans, but I think they'll be a better team for sure as long as he's actually healthy. Russ is going to be cooking tonight. Okay, Dixon. Am I missing something, like a narrative point here? Zolo said Tease is a sneaky GPP punt. Yeah, with Plumlee out still. Tease, he has been seeing a few more minutes as of late. So that does make him a little bit more interesting. He does have to be extremely efficient to get there, so I don't hate it. Yeah, Dixon, I need to look. That does seem weird, but I'm not going to overthink it yet. But that is a little concerning. But yeah, y'all, that's pretty much everything for now. Of course, Brandon and I will be back for the pre-lock show. Like I always say, we'll tell you how we're actually using the domination station. We'll show you actual different versions of lines and things of that sort, and just kind of make sure we're all on the same page, talking through leverage plays and core plays as well. So appreciate you all for sticking around with me and helping me out through this slate. Look forward to seeing everyone later on the pre-lock show. And if not for the pre-lock show, we'll see you all tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Brandon will be here for this show as well as the pre-lock show tomorrow. So peace out. Good luck, guys. See you later. Have a good one.